when I first came back in 2022, after about 5-6 years working in Silicon Valley, and I was pretty burnt out. I basically had a very unexpected work transition that led me to have to consider how I was going to think about work and career after coming back to Singapore and transitioning with 2 kids and my husband's new job as well. So that was when I started to explore new ways of being or new ways of working. I had always been very career driven. I had my MBA, I had been working very intensely in the past 5-6 years in a unicorn, a Silicon Valley health tech startup that became a unicorn. So I was always all about, climbing the ladder in that sense until I guess so many transitions happened and I started to think about what it could look like. And that was when, through a series of meetings, I met Moritz, who is the person who started Portfolio Careers Asia. And then he introduced me to that idea of a portfolio career, which really resonated with what I was, looking for unknowingly about trying to sort of redefine career success on your own terms at a level of work that after, about 15 years of work, I felt like I should be able to carve out a little bit and have a bit more independence on. So that kind of started. When someone's going through a transition, a lot of it is both external and internal change. And to go on it alone is the most isolating thing. That's why I think it's important when you're going through transitions, and motherhood, work transitions is a big, especially for having a community, is even more important because we are just a more communicative and I think more social in that way, where we just need the encouragement and validation. So being seen and heard is super important when you're going through like a work transition, a career transition, or identity shift. Yeah, to know that you're not alone and you're not crazy.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Hi folks, before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know that this is a special episode where I had the honor of being a guest on the Adrian Tan Show. Adrian Tan talks to people from all walks of life about modern work. And in my conversation with him, I opened up about my journey from working in Silicon Valley to navigating unemployment in Singapore, and how those experiences led to the birth of the Make It Work podcast, which is what you're listening to. We also talked about the lessons I've learned, the role of faith in shaping my path, and my favorite part at the end, what I would tell my younger self if I had the chance. It's one of the most personal and heartfelt conversations I've had. I hope it resonates with you and maybe even inspires you in your journey. And now for the episode.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Adrian Tan Show. Today is a special episode because I'm doing in studio. Why in studio? Because a non-studio environment is very painful. I spent 5 hours trying to clip a 45 minutes video. So it was very painful. Hopefully I don't have to go through the lesson again. And today is also a bit different because I'm having a guest who is not exactly solopreneur, but of course still very much on the portfolio career path. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Adrian. Great to be here.
For people who are new to you, how do you normally introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I would say I'm Sarah Wong. I am a mom of 2, under 5. And I split my time between a few things in my portfolio of career. I do podcasting and I have a podcast called Make It Work, which I'm a host of. And it's about 2 years now. And it's focused on inspiring stories of modern working moms in Asia, like myself, who are trying to juggle career and motherhood. So that's actually my side project, but it's usually like the more interesting things. So I kind of start with that.
And recently you got featured.
Oh, yes, just yesterday. So it's very recent. Yes, it got featured on Channel News Asia Lifestyle as one of the top podcasts for moms or women in Singapore. So very excited. Yes, thank you for mentioning.
So what are the other stuff that you are working on right now?
Yeah, so the serious stuff, basically on the work side, I am a consultant and a venture partner with a health tech accelerator. It's called Heal Venture Lab. And I also do various other things. So I've done workshop facilitation. Something that I most recently got as well is a real estate salesperson license.
Real
I can
estate?
help you
Wow,
sell
okay.
your house. Yeah, I know it's totally like, what is
Random.
that about? But it's not really if you see my family, because my mom is actually the real estate agent in our family, and she brought up my whole family basically for the past 20, 30 years. And yeah, so she is the one who inspired me to consider that after I came back from the US about 2 years ago, and I was exploring like options for work and how to balance, young kids and work. And so, yeah, so it started there, and I used my Skills Future credit. So that was helpful. Yeah, that was the process. Yeah, so I think that's some of the things that I do with my time working-wise. And then I spend a lot of time with my family. I'm very involved in church. I'm married to a pastor, and we're very involved in our church community as well.
So on the different things that you're doing right now in real estate and of course your podcast and all that, did that started from the very beginning that you decided, okay, I want to have this multiple portfolio career thing?
No.
Because most people would just, okay, let me just find that one thing that I'm good in. So
Yeah.
what actually triggered you to look at different things to begin with?
Yeah, it all really started out when I first came back in 2022 after about 5-6 years working in Silicon Valley. And I was pretty burnt out. I had a 1.5-year-old and another one on the way. And I basically had a very unexpected work transition that led me to have to consider how I was going to think about work and career after coming back to Singapore and transitioning with 2 kids and my husband's new job as well. So that was when I started to explore new ways of being or new ways of working. I had always been very career driven. I had my MBA. I had been working very intensely in the past 5-6 years in a Silicon Valley health tech startup that became a unicorn. So it was always all about, climbing the ladder in that sense until I guess so many transitions happened and I started to think about what it could look like. And that was when, through a series of meetings, I met Moritz, who is the person who started Portfolio Careers Asia. And then he introduced me to that idea of a portfolio career, which really resonated with what I was, I guess, looking for unknowingly about trying to sort of redefine career success on your own terms at a level of work that after, about 15 years of work, I felt like I should be able to carve out a little bit and have a bit more independence on. So that kind of started. Yeah.
I'm interested to hear more about that shift that happened for you. Because again, I think for most people, it did not come immediately. It usually wouldn't happen once. Are there any specific moment where it really made you snap? That it made you realize, okay, I really got to pursue something different?
Well, this was more of a experience of being forced into it because of the work transition that was not expected. I expected to kind of transition quite smoothly out of my previous company, but that happened more prematurely. And so that was one. The second thing that happened was having a second kid. And if you are a parent or people who are parents, especially moms, there's a huge shift in your identity when you move from being a woman to a mother. So that also started to shift something in me to question how I wanted to spend my time. And because I was spending so much time at work, the question then became okay, how do I want to spend my time at work now that I also want to be very present as a mom? So that was, these were the 2 big things. I guess the external kind of event that was in a way thrust upon me, and that internal change that happened also really quite slowly and quite unexpectedly. I didn't realize I had changed so much.
That also seemed to give me the impression that the working condition or maybe the work timing of your previous life seems crazy. Probably is why you're looking at something a bit different right now. Or could you just describe to us, how was a typical day like before you are doing what you're doing right now?
Well, actually, Adrian, it wasn't too crazy. If I hadn't come back and all the transitions didn't happen, I probably would still be in the same company enjoying the growth because I was working remote. This all happened after COVID and everyone was remote. My company headquarters was in California. I was in a different state and most people are already working remotely. So there was a lot of kind of freedom that way. But of course, it's still intense in that you still have to be accountable and things like that. But perhaps the working culture, and maybe it's a US thing, was quite forgiving, especially after COVID where people were working everywhere and it was okay for you to be away and people could end work pretty on time in that sense because you have control of your own time. So to answer your question, I wouldn't have actually thought about it if I hadn't been thrown out of it. But I would say the grind, I didn't have time to think outside of work. I did have freedom, but my time outside of work would be okay, now time for the family or whatever social or community activities I had. So if I was still back there, I would have probably continued pretty happily. Yeah.
So it's really the kind of situation change as well because like you said, the moment appears to coincide with your second kid, which also I imagine takes up another huge toll on your bandwidth. I personally have 4 kids, so I know how much bandwidth it can take on one, especially if you try to be, if you try to be our parents or our grandparents. I think the way they parent is very different.
Mm.
But for us, I think we try to, at least for people that I know of,
Yeah,
we try to be more involved. Yeah,
definitely.
which I think sometimes we also overdo it on our own. We try to be their friend, we try to be their parents, we try to be their
Right.
tuition teacher,
Yeah.
all roll into one.
How old are your kids now?
My kids now, they are 16, 13, 12, and 10.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's like really consecutive. Okay,
Yeah,
good
but
job.
also because they are much older, so I think it's a bit easier to manage
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
And the good thing about having more kids is they can entertain each other. So that takes me out of the equation to
Right,
be
right.
the clown in the house,
The
to
main,
entertain them. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's the other way. Either you really have a lot of kids or you decide to be very focused on a few.
So when you decided on, okay, this is what I want, I want to go on a different path.
Yeah.
What exactly did you pursue next? Did you speak with someone? Did you try to find some mentor to discuss? So what was your next steps then?
It was definitely a series of a lot of conversations. I mentioned that I met Moritz, and this was also my previous mentor. I mean, she's still my mentor, but my mentor from like 15 years ago, like in my first job, I've kept in touch with her throughout, and we exchanged just messages from time to time. And so when I came back, I just met up with her, and then she about meeting this person, and I met basically other people from there. That's how I also found out about Heal Venture Lab. And I think it is like following sort of a series of following the string in a way. Yeah. So it wasn't very strategic. I mean, I went to INSEAD to do my MBA, and so they also had a bunch of networking events. So I attended that and started to kind of put it out on LinkedIn as well. Actually, I went back to see, the first like official LinkedIn post of me like basically saying, "Hello everybody, I'm unemployed. Please help me." 2 years ago. Yeah. So I guess maybe that was the very first thing, like sort of making it known to my circle. And then telling people this is what I was looking for. The other thing I remember is like, every time I met someone, they would be asking for a sort of a blurb or a bio of myself, like, 50 words or whatever of like what you've done and what you're looking for. And so I had something ready on hand and had like different versions so I could share with different people. Yeah, so those were those days.
But when I decided to go independent, I think LinkedIn also played a big part to me because I decided to just put out an SOS that I'm going independent. This is what I'm focusing on. If there's anything we can collaborate with, let me know. And I think less than 2 weeks, I managed to get 3 different assignments.
Wow.
Yeah. So that also gave me the confidence that, okay, this is something that I should try to explore and see how long I can stretch it. And to your earlier point about, it not being strategic and all that, actually, every single person that I've spoken with so far, even my latest guest, the episode hasn't gone live yet. This guy is a consultant, those kind of
Right.
essential kind of
Yeah.
consultant. You would imagine someone like that would have already planned his years 200 years ahead. But even for him, I see opportunity, I grab. I go to such networking event and see what to make out of it. So a lot of things, I also feel that it is, you need to have the intent you need to be open firstly, and you need to say yes to a lot of things, especially if you're going into a new circle.
At the beginning, it's like a funnel where you're just sort of widening network, trying to see what's out there and learning. Like I didn't know about the idea of portfolio careers only because I talked to people and then landed in the community and learned more about it and joined some meetings to understand how to like quote people or price yourself and stuff like that.
So before we talk about your real estate gig, let's talk about your podcast
that's
first.
not the main thing at all. Please.
So let's just focus on your podcast first. The inspiration behind this podcast. And your podcast name actually caught my attention because when I was doing work for Channel News Asia, the name of the podcast was Work It.
Yeah.
And then your podcast is Make It Work. And interestingly, I got a newsletter. I call it Will It Work? So it all seems to be around this, where, of course, you are interviewing modern working mothers across Asia so far.
Yeah.
Tell us the motivation behind that. How did that all come up?
Right. So I did share about how I came back in 2022, 3 years ago, with 1.5 kids. And I was pretty burnt out from having a young kid, managing on my own without, support, and then also working in a fast-paced startup. So when I came back and I was going through all these transitions of giving birth to a second kid and also a lot of reverse culture shock, really, it just really made me question who I was and what I wanted to be, I guess, in the next season. So I started talking to other who I identify as, modern, ambitious women who had been a few steps ahead and had juggled their work and their careers, especially their careers and their families, especially people who had done interesting career shifts. I wanted to talk to people to figure out their thinking process and their steps. And these conversations were really invaluable. I knew that it would benefit other people because a lot of people in my circle, my generation were also feeling kind of that way. So I decided to put it out as conversations on a podcast format. And that was how it was born, almost 2 years ago.
How many episodes have you done so far?
Oh, I just finished number 30.
Number
Yeah,
30.
yeah.
Nice, nice. So
You're like 300
I know
now.
lah, I'm at 160 plus for my
That's nice.
own. And of course, there's Channel News Asia
Yeah.
and others. Yeah. So how did that started off for you? Tell us more about your episode 1. How was your episode 1 like? I'm always curious to learn how it
Yeah,
was
that's
from
a
the very
cute question.
beginning.
Yeah, that's a fun question. It was video. Most of them are through video. That's the easiest. So I was using a borrowed microphone, and it was actually the guest number 1, who is Fanny Lim. Thank you again for lending me the microphone.
Your guest
And
lent you the microphone.
yeah, she lent me her time. She lent me a microphone. That's how it was born, guys. Yeah, it literally felt like it was a godsend because I had a microphone, but it wasn't that good. So she lent me hers.
Is there a criteria to choose your first guest? Only if you have a microphone.
No, but I think it was like a sign, you know what I mean?
Ah.
Like I wanted to talk to her, but I didn't ask her about microphone. I just told her that, oh, I'll be interested in doing this. And then she said, hey, I have a microphone. It's been in my, my box in the cupboard because we wanted to do something during COVID, but they didn't do. She and her husband wanted to do something about parenting and stuff. So I was like, yes, sure, I'll be happy to use that. So that felt very like divine in a sense, like, oh, okay, this must be the sign. So anyway, yes, that was my very first interview. And I also remember the editing process because I didn't know about editing softwares, and I used like GarageBand, and I almost died. Like literally the first 15 minutes, like, I don't think I can do this. Thankfully, I found out about, the AI world of video editing, and that totally like changed everything. So yes, that was the first episode.
So on podcast production itself, what are some of the things that you have picked up and learned over this past 30 episodes?
I learned that it's very easy to start, but it's about maintaining that is the challenging part. And because the maintaining piece is about learning how to use social media, learning how to find your way around it in posting, when to post, what text, the different social medias, and sort of the different angle you need to take. Like learning all that has been, I feel, one of the steepest learning curves for me out of all this. I mean, I love talking to people, and doing that was easy, like reaching out and doing all the research. But the challenging part was really to maintain it by being consistent in posting and continuously like tweaking to, as I learn more about, what audience sort of prefer and what time. And that has been, I think, the biggest learning out of this. Yeah.
And are there any things that you have also learned throughout this process which may have dispelled any earlier misconception about podcasting?
I guess people seem to think that it's quite glamorous or something, but it's not. Yeah. I do it at my balcony, and usually it's pretty hot when I'm because there's no aircon there. Yeah, and you don't earn much from it. Not like Adrian.
Yeah, I still earn very little. Yeah. Otherwise, it would be
exactly. It's not something like money making like very glamorous. And stuff.
Otherwise, I'll be doing this imposter, which also
right.
really got me thinking why so many podcasts are doing it imposter, especially when they are new podcasts. Because there's firstly, if you're a new podcast, you don't even have traffic. Yeah, so it's really a huge gamble, in my opinion. But of course, having said that, you're outsourcing a lot of stuff to people. You don't have to touch anything at all.
Yeah, but it does give you kind of that polish and that, that shine, I guess, especially as a new, and maybe with more and more coming out, it's like maybe that's a bar, right? That's already set, I guess. Yeah.
So walk us through the process right now. So after you've recorded an episode, how much time do you spend on editing? What software do you use? How much time do you spend on making social media clips? What software do you use?
I spend about an hour researching and reaching out to the guest. And then the interview itself is usually about an hour as well. And the bulk of the work happens after that, the post-production. So very thankfully, I have a very capable video editor, Sheetal, who sits in Pune, India, who helps me. And I even met her in Singapore like a few months ago. And she has been someone who helps me with doing all of that, quite a bit of that, even though I still am quite involved in that. So that takes out of my time, I would say another maybe 12 hours or so. And then there's the crafting of all the posts that I'm also pretty involved, but I work off a base that my video editor, and I guess she's a social media manager and everything rolled into one, who helps me with as well. And I put on that. So I think all in all, it could be like at least 4 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for myself, of course, also about an hour for recording. I will use Descript to do most of the editing.
Oh, yes, that's what I used to.
And then, of course, I'll move over to Canva to do the images. But a lot of other stuff like clipping, social media posts, etc., Actually, Descript is a very good tool to do everything within that app itself.
Mm.
Last time I have to, okay, let me copy out the transcript, feed into ChatGPT, help me find certain clips, and then go back to the reel again. It was very painful last time.
Okay.
Yeah, now I think it's much easier.
Yes, you mentioned all those that you mentioned, I use as well. I also use Notebook LM, which has been really helpful. I don't know if you've used it before.
I've used it before, but not for podcasting.
Yeah, it helps with at different stages, like the research of the guest, because you can plug in different sources and ask questions of it. So you kind of get a quicker sort of synthesized version of who the person is, what they've done, what do they say, and what, the highlights of it. So that's been really helpful in getting to that. And then also, even after that with the transcripts, like it helps with the summarizing and just knowing what are the points that keep coming up again. Yeah.
When I was doing podcasts for the Financial Coconut recently because of general election, we used a lot of Notebook LM because there were so many manifesto.
Yeah.
So no time to read.
Oh.
So I just dump it into Notebook LM, and then I have one on PAP, one
can
on
ask
WP.
questions.
Yeah, and then we just ask questions.
Yeah. How does this study compare to the other
Yes,
CPF policies?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
that's
was
great.
interesting. So I
Right.
would highly recommend people to look into those tools to help you speed things up. Unless, of course, you have a huge production crew, then you can outsource everything.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it alone, like myself, after this episode, I could go and edit.
Yeah.
So you need all these kind of different tools to speed things up.
Yep. It's amazing what you can do. AI.
I also want to go into what you're doing within the space of mentorship. So I understand you spend quite a fair bit of time in that space, mentorship for women especially, in tech and leadership. Tell us more about that. I understand there's also a program associated with that. How did that come about, and what's the objective?
I'm quite an idealistic person. I'm quite driven by my values, and one of the things that I've personally benefited a lot is being mentored by older women, as well as actually even a male in my previous company, Monster. So because I have benefited from that, I really see the power of having someone just a few steps ahead to kind of question me on where I'm going, what do I want to do. So it was one of my first few jobs that I met my mentor, and she gave me the perspective of knowing where you wanted to be and where you are now, and trying to kind of fill the gaps and figure out what experiences you wanted to do. So I was still a junior in Medtronic, which is a medical device firm. I was working in innovation, and I knew that I wanted to grow in a global role. I wanted to work overseas. I wanted to basically climb the ladder. That was what I wanted then. And she told me about how she did it. And that was where I had a lot of inspiration. She was also the one who inspired me to go for an MBA, because she had an MBA and she talked about it with like glowing reviews. And I was, and she and as well as other managers, basically, who were my managers then, who had spoken so highly about it and gave me testimonials as well that helped me in my process of getting there. So basically, I've experienced a lot of people pouring into me, which is why there's the motivation of doing that. So some of the mentorship programs that I've been involved in was when I was in Louisville, Kentucky, living there for a couple of years. I started like a women in tech called Rocket mentorship program, where we would pair, younger women in tech with older women in tech. And that was a really interesting experience, because I am an Asian woman, an immigrant, and I'm coming into a pretty homogenous environment that I was a minority to, but there wasn't such a program. And I had to kind of try to figure out mentors, basically, who maybe like look like me or someone I could kind of follow to learn. And there wasn't anything like that. So I went to a women's conference and asked the person, hey, do you have a program? And she didn't. So I said, hey, can I help you start something like that? So it just started out, and it started with like 20 mentees and 20 mentors, and it grew in the 3 years that I was there. But I'm not there anymore, and it's still ongoing. And I know that there have been really amazing stories of people getting job offers because of introductions through mentors. Even that's also my story of getting job offers because of introductions through a mentor. And that's like really powerful when you have people who are just looking out for you and who have, the connections that you don't at that point. Now my focus on mentorship has evolved into more of my stage of life, which is figuring out motherhood and career. And I joined recently as a mom mentor in a return ready program. So this is for women who are returning back to work after a transition, whether it's about going through maternity leave or taking a break from work. And this is started by one of the guests in my podcast, Sarah Pentry, and she started it recently because there was a need. Because there's a lot that is done to prepare you maybe for becoming a mom, but not really for you going back to work. So that was where she started, and to have that program to have people be matched. So I've joined that recently and matched to someone who's transitioning into that. And it's really very validating, especially maybe for women more so, to be with others who have gone through this transition, this tension of trying to like figure out, can I have it all? And what should I do? And I want to be here, but I want to be at home as well, and that kind of thing. And just sort of a listening ear, but more than that, also provide, support or practical strategies. So yeah, I think mentorship is really important, and I've been a beneficiary out of that. And I just want to continue giving back in different ways, different seasons, right?
At one point in time, I was a career coach. And one of the things that I always advise my client to do is to find mentor online. And if you were to do it in a very intelligent fashion, you could actually get someone to, of course, take care of you and even provide you with opportunities. But a lot of people on the flip side would tend to, let me find someone online and then go and approach them, connect with them. Got a job or not?
Yeah.
Nobody will entertain you.
Yeah.
But if you were to approach the same group of people and ask them, can I get career advice from you? Yeah, you'll be very different. It is very similar to, I think there was this saying last time from Silicon Valley, if you ask for advice, you get money. If you ask for money, you get advice. So I actually apply that. If you ask for a job, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get a job.
A lot of jobs are actually not on the official portals. They're all like in the shadow job market, and only those who are aware will be aware. So I think it's not necessarily asking if there are jobs opening, but like just being available. And also I think the other one thing about, I think this is a bit more about networking, less about mentoring. But one thing I really learned is that you need to close the loop when you've met somebody, say in a networking event, and like that person has maybe introduced someone else, to give a follow-up about what happened to that introduction. Because as someone who has done that before, I realized that it really helps to seal the relationship and make it less transactional. It's not as if like you're there to get something out of it, but you want to let the person know that, hey, this is a journey and you've been part of it. I'm thankful for whatever you've provided during this time. And also sometimes even ask for what they might need, because you never know, like in your network, your neighbor might be giving piano lessons that their kid needs. So like you just
On this group of people that you mentioned, they are people who are mothers looking to return back to the workforce, right? Most of them returning mothers. The group of people, the community that you are working on right now, mostly mothers who are looking to return back to the workforce. Correct?
I think there's a mix. There are people who are already working. There are people who are not working, and some people who are like looking back.
So for some of them, it is to perhaps gain clarity on their career ladder. But for other group, it's really trying to find their own career ladder to begin with.
Yes, that's right. I think because motherhood just throws you in a new environment, the whole question of whether you still want to do this, even if you're still working, it's always at the forefront of someone who's become a mother. So whether they're working or not, there's always a question of like, do I still want to do this? How long do I want to be doing this? So if they're working, doesn't mean that they are happily working, right? They will stay. So there's always this constant questioning. So it doesn't mean that they are not looking out, even though they are working. Yeah.
I'm just curious to learn, is it very challenging right now for mothers who's looking to return back to workforce? When I was doing outplacement, I must admit, it was really challenging. This was back in 2017, 2018. And prior to that, I was in recruitment. And in recruitment, I tell you, the discrimination is real. It's legit one. A little bit cannot already. Oh, you're 3 months out of work, you're rusty, cannot. Is it as prevalent right now as before?
Maybe because I'm in the circles that I am, meaning a lot of people who are in transitions. They actually, even in the portfolio careers group, there are a lot of people who are in transition and looking for a job. I just feel that maybe the climate is such that there's more supply than demand. And so as a mother who maybe has been out for maybe longer than others perhaps, and I'm just focusing on those who are going back to work, right? Like there is, I think, a little bit of bias towards that. So to answer your question, I think it's right now.
Which is why I guess people require as much support as they can from the community, from people from your programs. I always feel that it is important from both perspectives to help each other out, especially people who are down and out. I think it's this saying, you will remember 3 kind of people. People who are with you during bad time, people who left you during bad time, people who just, give you a kick.
Forgot you.
Yeah, forgot you during bad time. And ultimately, just like recession, things will pick up. And those are the time when I believe the favor will be returned. But of course, not to go in there to to take it as a transaction, but I feel that those are really the time when people are most needed to get the kind of support to help them through life. And for all you know, you may be the next one to require those kind of support.
When someone's going through a transition, a lot of it is both external and internal change. And to go on it alone is the most isolating thing. That's why I think it's important when you're going through transitions, and motherhood, work transitions is a big, especially for women. I think like being a woman, having a community is even more important because we are just more communicative and I think more social in that way, where we just need the encouragement and validation. So being seen and heard is super important when you're going through like a work transition, a career transition, or identity shift. Yeah, to know that you're not alone and you're not crazy.
I'd like to go next into how you manage your time, energy across what you're doing right now. Because on the personal front, on professional front, quite a lot of things in your basket lah. So describe to us how your daily routine, a typical day is like for you right now. And importantly, are there some strategies other listeners can try to apply in their day-to-day as they're trying to juggle all the balls that are in there?
Yeah, I'll answer this in two parts. I think one is the more philosophical perspective and one is practical. And it's something that I'm learning very recently as well, is this idea that rest, and because I'm a Christian, this idea of Sabbathing is so important. It's written into our bodies that we need to rest. And I'm not talking about just getting a good night's sleep. This idea of a Sabbath is about taking a day to carve out time to just stop doing productive stuff and to just be, to enjoy God's creation, to go out, enjoy your relationships, to enjoy good food, to enjoy your hobbies, and to be filled by that, and to live out of that rest for the rest of. Isn't that
Yeah, yes.
right? And when I started to practice this a little bit more, and it's only been a few weeks, it really built this resistance in me. And resistance in the sense that I realized there's something in me that really needs to feel like I'm on the pedal and running the wheel and producing something of value, such that when I like stop work or tell myself to, stop whatever at a certain time, and for me it's Friday afternoons, I feel this huge like fear of feeling like, oh no, what happens if we stop? Then the world's gonna end. But the truth is, the truth is that it's okay to let go.
Many people seems to think too much of themselves lah. That I never go into office. Well, whole business will die. But actually, it's never the case.
Yeah. And it's realizing that, hey, you are not the God of your universe. Actually, there's a lot that's going on. And in my case, it's like realizing that God is control. I have very little under my control. And I should just let it be and let God in that sense. So I have started to try to light a candle, like an aroma candle, to mark the start of the day. And this is actually a bit of a practice. I mean, start of not the day, but the timing. It's a visual and also like a scent, like aroma, right? So it's an olfactory kind of acknowledgement that, oh, okay, like my whole body starts realizing the time is shifted. Let me try to shift my orientation away from producing to resting and enjoying. So yeah, that's something that I am practicing a bit more, that I think is a huge shift in the posture of trying to manage all the balls. It's really hard. Yeah. There's a resistance, but it's a kind of fighting against like the incessant tide of expectations of society, or even what you tell yourself you should be doing. So that's the philosophical answer. That's also quite practical because it's literally like stopping and enjoying. Other things that I do that I feel have really helped me in managing my energy, and I love that you say energy because it's really about that rather than like time. So I think I start the day. Still work in progress, guys. Like definitely not very good. I start the day. I try to start with an alarm, but it doesn't really happen. I hear the kids at 7:00, and I'm awake. My ideal is to wake up before 7, so I get quiet before the kids wake up. But work in progress. So hear the kids, try to do some meditation, do a bit of like stretching and a bit of yoga in the morning, and reading, listening to the Bible. And then, so that's my like little me time before I start brushing my teeth and going to do all the stuff to come and to be ready for the day. So that is one example of what I do. And then during the day itself, I think the time blocking thing has been very, very important for me because I'm someone who lets work fill up the amount of time. And if I don't set a stop, like it can just go on forever. So I use a timer, like the 25-minute, Pomodoro timer. That's one thing I try to do, not all the time, but when it's helped me to like stay sort of more alert and on the ball so that I don't just think I got, so much time to do whatever I need. And I think these would be the two big things I would say.
I really love the cue where you will light a candle or maybe some diffuser, and that really changes the environment. All these kind of cue are actually quite interesting. I'm not sure if you notice, if you walk into I think Ion Orchard, they have a very unique scent.
Yes.
Last time I went to Katong also, Lululemon.
Oh yeah.
Lululemon have a very distinctive scent, and it really transport you into somewhat in a different state, different universe altogether. And of course, if you go to spa, naturally you go in, you have the kind of smell, you listen to those kind of music, right?
Yeah.
It just feels very different.
Yeah.
And I think those kind of cue are very important to remind us that we need to change our state. I follow this guy called Eric Partaker on LinkedIn. He is what he calls himself a CEO coach. He has one book called 3 Alarms. And the TLDR of the book is he basically set 3 alarms on his watch. One alarm is to remind him to work out. One alarm is to remind him to be focused for work. And the third alarm is for him to remind himself to shut down. And the shutdown one very interesting because instead of labeling it as shutdown, he labeled it as world's greatest father.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I actually have the same label
Yes,
on my
yes,
Apple
yes.
Watch. So every day, 7 p.m., world's greatest father. So that is a reminder for me to, okay, I need to take off my work
Change.
hat, whatever I'm doing right now, and then I'm going to put on my father's hat. I'm
Mm.
going to spend some time with my kid, talk to them. Even if you spend 2-3 minutes talking to them, it's better than you spending 0 minutes talking.
Yeah.
So all this kind of cues, I think it's very interesting. But I particularly like the smell one. I think it's something that I personally want to explore and get
Yeah.
some scent in
Take
my
all
house.
those Christmas candles that like are around,
Yeah.
right? Like that you receive for gift exchange. I was like, yeah, I have so many. Why not just do that? And then it really does kind of put you in a different state. It reminds you, right? Because we're not just physical people. We're like physiological, and it really changes how you think. So yeah, and I also do the alarm thing as well. Like 9 a.m. is like work beast mode, and then 5 p.m. is like pick up kids, and then just be there for them. So yeah, agree.
And one thing I want to also try is I'm going to blast some spa music on my Bluetooth speaker. See if that add to anything or not.
Yeah. How about you? What's your biggest hack I want to hear?
Biggest hack I think batching really helps a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, work batching. I actually recently wrote a post about this, but I haven't gone live yet because I've been seeing how many people are struggling to fit everything into their 8 hours workday.
Yeah.
And I feel there are certain things that we just have to decide on how we want to do things differently. Like for example, for the longest time, even right until today, I try to achieve inbox 0, which actually make yourself frustrated only.
You're one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those. My wife, on the other hand,
Yeah.
43,000 unread
I think there are
emails.
two types of people.
Yeah, so
should
there are
just
two types
ask.
of people.
I am the other person.
You have inbox 0, you have another person, 43,000
Yes.
unread emails, and then they marry each other.
You know what? That's what my husband is. He's the inbox 0 guy as well. But that's why it works. That's why relationships need that balance.
Yeah. So trying to look past that is important.
Yes.
And I realize sometimes it may not be intentional. If you're on a long flight, you can't do anything. What? Yeah, especially if there's no Wi-Fi and all that. And then when you finally landed, you get Wi-Fi, you check through, oh, actually not so important one. And you're just deleting because a lot of them actually are immaterial. I think maybe it became a bit performative at times, which I have to try to catch myself, that I feel that by fiddling with my email,
You're doing something.
I'm doing something. I tend to associate busyness with being productive. It's like I've seen this in some of my former bosses. They're meeting back to back one.
Yeah.
One whole day, 8 hours can be meeting.
I don't
What have you achieved? Just meeting, more meeting, and more meeting. So I think it becomes so performative that people accept it as a norm. And I think it's important to break away from the norm because I don't think that's the only way that you have to behave to get work done. It just doesn't make sense to me.
That's why you have to show. You show that there's another way.
And I'd like to go to my final question, and I'd like to frame it across different. If you can meet the younger version of yourself before kids, having gained all the wisdom, all the experience, all the knowledge that you have today, what would you tell the younger Sarah?
Oh, it depends. Should I do I met at my coffee shop?
That one passe already.
No, yeah, I know. It's a bit, cliche already. What would I tell the younger Sarah? I'll tell her that it only gets better. and to remind us that I need to give myself a lot of space, and that there's, in relation to how I think about success or success in life, I suppose the younger me is very focused at pursuing career work goals. Is that that the career ladder is not a helpful think about dancing to your own tune. Yeah. And that would make you much more fulfilled and yeah.
If I have the chance to look at my younger self, I think it is on quite similar ground, that it is heartened to know that the best has already been put in. Yeah, that he has already done his best, and at least we tried. Yeah, I think that's very important, because
Right.
you can't hit 100% of your home run. It's impossible. But there also shouldn't be any regrets in life, because I think living with regrets in life is like trying to drive a car, but you keep looking at the rearview mirror. Yeah, you should langgawan.
Right.
So I think on that, it's really trying to come about the basis of don't be so hard on yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, I think there were times when I think most of our younger version will be very hard on ourselves, trying to achieve too much in too short of a time. Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you feel the same way?
I think the younger self is very focused on a certain goal and like thinking that this is the only way, sort of. Not realizing that there's so many things that change along the way. Like, I think the younger self just extrapolates what I experience now into the future, thinking like this is how it will be. But no one solved it, right? Like, you just don't see so many things and you realize that you don't have a lot of control. And so it's best to think about it in seasons. This is just another chapter, and it's okay that it didn't maybe go the way, but it's a chapter of a book, right? It's not the book. It's just a part of it.
I feel
It's
these are
better.
things that school should play a part in teaching.
Yeah,
Don't just teach us English,
agree, yeah.
science, math, but can also teach us how to be a better person.
Yeah, and I say that all the time, that I wish my MBA, which is like a top MBA, would have taught me about the popular career, right? Like the idea that, you don't need to be the general manager all the time or like be a CEO. What about, the other ways of working?
For listeners and viewers who is keen to learn more about yourself, where can they go to?
Oh, yeah, please check out Make It Work podcast on IG, on TikTok, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and yeah, I'll see you there.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.